No, not
Oh.
his grandson.
Oh, I see. I see.
But he's been very nice to
He's very talented.
me. He's
In
brought people
some ways.
around who want to work for him.
Anyway, to get back to business, Charles, we're talking about what was supposed to be your last dress.
Yes, I felt come to the end of dressmaking.
What year was that?
Oh dear me, 53. I have a very funny story to tell you about that. It took many people to make. It was made for the inaugural ball, but it couldn't get through the door.
Inaugural ball of who?
Eisenhower,
And who was wearing it?
Austin Hurst.
What did she do?
She was springtime.
How did she get through the door?
We quit it. And it had been made for Mrs. Nixon.
This dress for Mrs. Nixon?
Yeah, and she didn't.
Come on.
She didn't pay.
What?
So I took it away.
No, wait a minute, Charles. Charles, back up. This dress, one of the last dresses you would ever make,
Yeah,
or
and
thought
I
you'd ever
thought
make,
it
was made for Pat Nixon? Or you
Yeah.
made one for Pat Nixon?
who has a certain curious beauty
How did Pat Nixon come to find Charles James
through Austin.
Hurst?
No, through Senator somebody's wife.
And did she come to your New York studio for fittings?
No, it was all supposed to be done in Washington. But then there was no fitting. And therefore, I paid a lot to go to Washington. He was very angry. I'd have to know.
You went to Washington to have the fittings?
Yes.
What was she like then?
Well, I never saw her.
How did you make her a dress?
Well, I got her measurements. Senator Malone,
What are Pat Nixon's measurements? You couldn't remember that, Charles.
they were pretty good.
And you made her the dress by the measurements.
Yes.
And what happened?
I took it there. It wasn't finished. The hem was done in a drawing room on the train through the night.
And did you took the dress to the White House and,
Or wherever she lived.
oh, that's right, she wasn't in the White House then. So you took the dress to her and she took the dress.
No, she said it was far too elaborate a dress, too important a dress for her to wear as vice president. And so it came back to me and was not paid for.
So she ordered it but didn't pay for it.
Yes.
That's, you probably had one of the early signs of the Nixon mentality.
I met him later at the dinner which the Hearst gave, and he's very, very nice to me. But I think he had the talent of being nice.
Do you have any other impressions of either Pat or Dick?
No.
Good.
But later, when Mrs. Hearst wore it to the ball for the paralyzed, what is that called?
Paraplegic?
No, the
Handicapped children?
Mrs. Lambert, if one dare mention her name, organizes
You mean
the
Eve Lambert?
polio.
Polio.
And it took the whole staff to make that dress. Each took a part. And around 7 in the morning, I found the top rather hard for her to wear. And so I sent out for 200 gardenias. And they were all sewn to an organdy blouse. And she took a suite up in the Waldorf. And when she came down, the other tarts society types who posed as models was furious at the smell of the gardenias. But nobody really knew they were gardenias in the audience until at the end of her parade, she threw the jacket to the press, and they all but fainted at the smell.
Wasn't this, in fact, did they make a video of this, and wasn't it found to be
Yes.
the only dress that could walk backwards and look
Yes,
as good as it did
but
walking
it also
forwards?
disappeared.
The dress?
Yes, Miss Lambert had something to do with that.
She stole a dress?
Well, she saw that it disappeared.
Some other New York designers saw that a lot of your dresses and patterns disappeared too.
Yes, I know. In Brooklyn Museum, 300 drawings given by the Ryerson of Chicago. You know who found it in Inland Steel.
We'll get into the Brooklyn Museum a little later. But, Charles,
We'll have a whole talk about that.
we certainly will. Tell me, Charles, now why did you think this was going to be the last dress you'd make? This is known as the black and white dress. Is this dress too an interpretation
It was
with a pink or?
It was
A
put on the
derivative?
same base. Fleur Cole had that taken to Washington.
This is, of course, Mrs. William Randolph Hearst here in this dress. Who threw the
In a
garden.
way, she was one of the most beautiful women I ever remember. And we were like brother and sister.
Who was the brother? No, I'm just kidding, Charles. This is champagne. This is champagne. Forgive me, but really, seriously, why did you think this was the last dress that you were going to make?
Because I was tired. I worked very long hours. I had to do what other people didn't do, couldn't do. And I used to go back to the workroom from the Sharon Netherlands at 11 and work till 4. And then be back in the workroom at 11.
This was 1953.
Yes. It was in the Neiman Marcus show.
And isn't this dress now in the Metropolitan Museum?
It's far more important. It's in the Victoria and Albert Museum, given by the Art Students League.
Well,
We took contributions from Mrs. de Cuevas and paid half
you mean
of
the
it.
sculptress, Bessie de
And
Cuevas.
paid half of it itself out of the central fund. It was the most expensive dress that had ever been bought by the museum.
How much was the dress?
$6,000.
And how much was the satin coat that also broke a record? Well, it doesn't matter how much it was, but it's there.
I don't remember the satin coat.
Anyway, in fact, here is another picture of Millicent Rogers in a dress by
She was
Charles
another
James
one
Harriet.
of the most beautiful people I ever knew.
She was wonderful. And she died tragically early as well, didn't she?
Yes, not leukemia, but heart trouble, which came from early rheumatic fever. She was paralyzed. This you were like, she was paralyzed for a year. Oh, about 44, 45. Maria, Duchesse de Gramont said, send her negligee, which I made for Edward G. Dinshaw, the Parsi, who bought so many of my clothes. And she would get out of bed and she would put it on. And she did. And she came to New York a week later after being paralyzed a year, and she ordered that coat, which Dolores Del Rio, who was also a very beautiful person, bought, and it was lined with mink. We felt that during the war, people shouldn't wear mink
On the outside.
on the outside. And Valentina said, mink, it's a raincoat.
Charles, Millicent Rogers, of course, has been a celebrity among a certain select circle. But recently, with Diana Vreeland's show at the Metropolitan Museum of the 40s, she became sort of featured and a current legend, or a legend updated, because...
Yes, but she wasn't that close a friend with Millicent.
Who?
Diana.
Oh, by the way, I told you, Charles, did you know, I have a little gossip for you, a little gossip. Do you want a little gossip?
Which came from whom?
Nothing I could put on page 12 of my little paper, the National Enquirer, and I hope you read my Hollywood gossip every week on page 12, but I've got a little gossip for you, Charles. I hear that...
I gave it to you.
No, I've got a little bit of additional gossip about Diana Vreeland and the Metropolitan Museum, because I hear, and let me be the first to tell you and you, that the new show that Diana Vreeland is putting on for the Metropolitan Museum about the clothes of the Russian artist, Charles, starts with a D, Diana, you know, I can't, you know, Diana Vreeland. Anyway, I hear the Diana Vreeland show about Diana Vreeland is causing a lot of problem at the Metropolitan Museum. Not only is it causing a problem, I hear it may be her last show. Miss Vreeland is stepping on a lot of toes with this one when she recently went to London, to England, to see some of the most important collectors of the dresses. She didn't impress the collectors very much at all. Diana was sort of all color, and make it coral, make it beige, and the collectors in London didn't find it very amusing. They found her lacking depth. They said, we really expected more from Diana. She was all color, she was sort of 2 or 3 hours late for lunch, and in fact, many of the most important collectors have actually refused to give Diana and the Metropolitan Museum dresses from their collection because of her attitude.
I've refused to give one more. I've said that I give them to Australia and to England.
Well, the point is that Diana's having a lot of trouble with this latest show that she's trying to put together. She's stepping on a lot of toes. A lot of people over at the Metropolitan Museum say that this may be Diana's last show, and who will she be succeeded by? Who will become the next chairman of special effects? Well, could it be someone with the initials of, can you guess? Who's interested in costumes? Who's written books about costumes?
And looks like a boy.
And looks like a boy? If you know, write me, R. Couri Hay, care of the National Enquirer, or write Anton Perich, 210 Fifth Avenue, and there'll be a prize for the winner of this contest. Who will take over Diana Vreeland's job at the Metropolitan Museum?
You might add that she has very thick legs.
Well, so we already know it's a woman. So who is it? If you know, you write in and you win a very special prize for 2. Okay? Who's going to do it? Because Diana's stepping on a lot of toes, and a lot of people think she better pull her act together. They're saying she hasn't got an overall concept for this show. Anyway, let's skip all that, and let's go back to someone important like Millicent Rogers.
Mistake was something quite different. She got the Metropolitan involved in manufacturing and selling ready-to-wear.
And that, of course, is brought into
her class.
Well, it came into being a problem because it could ruin the museum's status as a non-tax deductible blah, 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 right?
Yes, exactly.
Could ruin its tax exemption as a non-profit organization.
She's very cruel. She can be kind.
Now, wait a minute, Charles. Do you say that because she left you out of the show about the 40s?
No. Years ago, she never wanted to see anything that was really good.
What do you mean?
She would say she wasn't available, something like that.
Well, was she or is she important in the fashion world today? Who is Diana Vreeland, Charles? I mean, you are part of the, you are the fashion world. You are the conscience of the fashion world. Who is Diana Vreeland? What is she? Who is she? What was she?
A pretentious woman whom I believe was born of a doctor in Newburgh who was a friend of Dr. Bailey, who was the father of Mrs. Murray Taylor. I don't think her pretensions to grandeur aside. She was quite good looking, though. You might not think that, but the Augustus Strong drawing of her when she was about 20 in London is a perfectly beautiful drawing.
Well, she certainly has been influential in the fashion world, Charles.
No, I think she's destroyed it, like Dorothy Schaefer.
How do you mean that?
She's destroyed effort. She's destroyed the desire of young talent to develop their own inspiration. She's really a wholesale expert. She knows what will sell. Her great word is chic. Now, chic really isn't fashion. Beauty is fashion. And beauty has so many forms. But chic has not.
Well, Millicent Rogers was surely included a great deal in the show.
Yeah.
And rightly so. Do you think she was the most beautiful,
She
the most stylish
excluded
woman
the
in the
things
bar?
that I made for Millicent.
Well, you were responsible for most of her things, weren't you?
Well, for a great many. May Boucher was too. But in North American Indian clothes, I made. And she even got Paulie to say they made it by a little dressmaker in Albuquerque. It was not true. I knew my workers' work because I directed it. And then you see, she's permitted people like Halston to copy Balenciaga dresses. They've been allowed to be taken out of closets, locked closets, at night, and muslin patterns taken with them. And Miss Lawrence, who's a perfectly wonderful curator, found one on the table full of pins. The next morning. But you know, she's a very curious woman. One day we lunched together, and we passed Wadley and Smythe in the forest. And she liked very much the petunias. And I did have a little money for once. And I said, which do you like? She said, I like them all. I sent all of them to her.
To DV?
25.
Vreeland.
But I've got an instinct to give because I want to take, and I don't think you can take without giving. And at one time in London, Gertrude Lawrence was very short of money and living with Ali Khan, who didn't have much either. And I saw a man on Oxford Street with a wicker basket of violins. You know about that size. And I said, well, now, he was playing a violin to him. And I said, how much do you want for the whole basket? I don't want a bunch. I want you to take it to Miss Gertrude Lawrence in Portland Place. And I don't want you to say who sent it. And the violin man was another story. I saw a violin man on Oxford Street playing Hungarian music after I came back from Hungary, which I adored. And I asked him if he'd go to Lady Lucia Warner's, who grew ill and go through the woods playing the violin. Lady Lucia hadn't been to Hungary for many years. And during the middle of dinner, this music came, and she couldn't think where it came from. And then the violinist appeared. And then when she died, I went to London, to the airport rather. I can't remember all those airport names. But it took a long time to go. And I filled the motor car with every conceivable rarity, perfumes which hadn't been made by Guerlain for 30 years, you know. Peignoir, lace and organdy like I made for Mrs. Rogers, clothes. I knew she'd had a stroke. And on the airplanes in those days, you could get a telegram. And on my way back to New York, I had a telegram that she died. She let her hair go white. She was Irish-Spanish, the daughter of Lord Montault. And she never thought gray hair would be coming, but she let it go gray. She was a very extraordinary person. Her husband had a mistress whose name was Madame Binet. We always called her Madame Bidet. Whenever they went out to dinner, they exchanged restaurants so that they wouldn't meet. And the first dress I made her was a geranium-colored spiral en roulé dress, very much like the one Alston copied, which was in 29. I made it later in 33. And she had a wonderful poise. She never scrambled for a table in a restaurant. She waited till it was given to her. And she would look right and left. And finally, the waiter, of course, would come up and say, "My lady, this is your table. You're standing right next to it." There was never a bill. And she looked simply wonderful. She's about 70. And she knew a lot of young people, like Gavin Henderson, Lord of whatever his name is now, and Michael Henderson, and Paul Hislop, the architect, Raymond Mortimer, the writer on the New Statesman. And she said everybody she knew of her generation was dead. There was no point of trying to know them, they weren't there. And so she gave a party once a year for those who were left. I thought the Duchess of Grafton had been dead for 15 years, when she was wheeled in the chair. And Mrs. Woodhouse, the great, what is it that isn't a piano? Earlier than the piano.
Harpsichord?
Yes, she was a great harpsichordist. And she played. And she gave a party like that once a year. She was a great admirer of D.H. Lawrence and had absolutely no feeling about erotica.
Well, I'm sure our audience has a lot of feeling about erotica, and we'll be back talking to you about the erotica of Charles James, the celebrated clients of Charles James, the stories of Charles James, the wit, the daggers. We'll give it all to you.
No, but you know, I loved my clients.
Like Dolores Del Rio.
People often didn't know that.
like Millicent Rogers, like
Yes.
Faustina
Yes,
Hearst,
they were the
like the Queen of Spain. Just
dressing
about like
them
everybody
was a
there ever was.
vicarious form of making love.
And we'll talk about that vicarious form of making love, designing for the famous clients, the celebrated clients, the clients you know, the clients you don't know, of Charles James. When we continue with the Charles James story. Thank
So
you for
that
joining
they-
me
so
and
that-
Anton Perich and Charles
so-
James
so
here
that-
at the Chelsea Hotel. In the heat, it's time for a champagne commercial.
So that they would make a great impression on the men.
Well, that's what
You see,
counts for a lot of ladies.
I wanted that.